Hey guys, welcome back to AWOI Gaming. This is Perry, and today we are finally going to cover Final Fantasy VII Remake for the PlayStation 4, as it has been a long journey to see this game released. Now, if you're not familiar with the way we do things here at AWOI Gaming, we look at video games in a way that they might be influential to the video game community, developers, and just overall having fun and spreading positivity, as we still need some in this world in today's times. Now, without further ado, let's talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'd be a fool if I didn't say that Final Fantasy VII growing up has made such a huge influence on the way I perceived what video games be played as in terms of JRPG. The fact that there's a big story and you have to level grind and there's a bunch of side quests and complexing characters. Final Fantasy VII was the game that made me fall in love with that atmosphere. When I would jump into future JRPG games and just like, oh, well, I know what to do. It's going to be turnstile and you have to level grind. That way you can experience the story and you know that it's going to be over the top themes and you're going to appreciate it at the end. To see Final Fantasy VII be remade though, this makes everyone crazy. Like, oh, how's it going to be done? Is it going to be done properly? Some games you just don't want to see remade. And when it was first announced in 2015, there was just this hope and glimmer of experience those moments again in the updated PlayStation 4 graphics and just seeing what it would be like. But what turned people off is that it was presumed to be episodic, so you wouldn't be experiencing the game fully. Now, however you want to see this, it looked like the game might not even come out and it would be forever, but it's actually here and it doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon. And up first, let's start with graphics. Square Enix, the developers, do a good job of building Midgard, which is the main beginning stages of Final Fantasy VII, into this cyberpunk, realistic looking adventure, and it just feels real, but it also is different in the way it does with its environments. The environments for each section just feels like it has its own unique story, and you can hear conversations throughout the when you're walking with Cloud Strife, the main protagonist of Final Fantasy VII, and as he hears people talking, it just makes the world feel alive, and every building looks clearly built. The only problem though is that the little textures that you see during your playthrough, and it's noticeable in like the faces, or just the fact like you can look out into rays and see that, oh wow, they really didn't do too good of a job. But also when you're climbing up a ladder, some of the characters face through each other and it just doesn't look pretty, because the overall aesthetic of the game feels real and live, but in those, there's certain moments where you feel like it should just be rendered right and just feels like it's smoothing. It doesn't overall affect the way I play the game. It's just noticeable that even though they probably spent billions and millions of dollars on just this one title, it still shows at some points that it wasn't clear. It doesn't affect your overall playthrough. It's just something that notice, and it can just be kind of jarring at times when you're playing it overall, because there's some moments that like where big boss fights happen and just seeing fireworks go everywhere, or seeing a big explosion off of boss battles, it's just kind of bad that just through your normal playthrough you can see some problems while you're trying to enjoy the game for what it is. It is noticeable that they needed that 1 month of delay, because this game was actually delayed from March 3rd to April 10th. They needed that extra productivity to force development. Yet it still wasn't enough. So maybe in the next part they actually spent a little more time in production and seeing from those flaws, because like even though they released it as episodic, they can look back at this previous game hopefully and go like, oh, we saw all the errors and maybe they can correct it. And like I said before, it doesn't overall affect. It's just something tedious, and if you're really into graphics, you're really going to see it. And like for me, that's not heavy into graphics to see it. It's just like, oh yeah, it's there. But like I said, they still capture the overall environmental feel on how each area feels like its own different places. Goes off by the way you go from sector 6 to sector 7. Some are dark places and the other are just like light friendly place that some places will look like, but they also appear run down. It just captures that overall atmosphere of what Final Fantasy VII originally was, but to see that completely blown up and with graphical texture look differently, it makes it feel believable, and it makes you appreciate everything that Square was able to do to make the world feel alive. Up next, gameplay. Final Fantasy VII Remake forgoes the traditional turn-based style gameplay that its original predecessor had before it, and changes it into a hack and slash mixed with other turn-based JRPG mechanics. The way this is done is what's called is ATB, which is what allows you to go ahead and slash here and there, but also as soon as your gauge fills up, you can slow down time for a few seconds to go ahead and do certain moves like magic moves or your abilities. This is cool because it allows you to take a minute and just rethink what you want to do just to use against the enemy. It mixes up your overall playstyle and just set up just hacking and slashing. But it's also cool is that each individual character has their own type of playstyle. For example, Cloud has what is likes to call it operator mode, that lets you be able to operate for a while. Then you hit triangle and you turn into Punisher mode, which allows you to do full damage everywhere, but you can't block, but it allows you to counter attack. This is different compared to like Tifa, who needs to build up ki, kind of like a monk in Dungeons and Dragons, and lets you to be able to fight and use different styles. Then you switch over to Barrett, who guns down enemies that are flying, and that just allows him to be able to take care of everything in the air while everyone is strategically taking everything on the ground. Each character has their own playstyle, and the way you navigate through this is by just hitting up on the D-pad to switch to each character, which allows you to keep things fresh. You don't have to stay on Cloud the entire time. You don't have to stay on Tifa the entire time. It's just how you want to play as a gamer, and I like that it was included in this game that everyone is important. You had to use it, and for something like Final Fantasy VII that has this beloved amounts of characters, it's great that Square was able to take each and every one and say, like, in this situation you should use exhibit character A over B. It's great, and I would like to see this used more in other games that they have, such as Kingdom Hearts. Instead of just using Sora, you should be able to use Donald and Goofy. It's not just about Sora sometimes. And if you don't feel like messing with the whole ATB slow down motion, you can actually go ahead and just use what they have, shortcuts. That way you can get to the abilities or magic and set it that way to speed it up and make it feel more fluent. I like that they gave players the options to do that, because sometimes I wanted to shortcut and other times I just like seeing the slow down motion. Sometimes seeing everything go grayish for a second, it's just cool in time zone as I sit there and think about what I want to do. It also correlates that you can do that with the other characters and tell them what to do without having to switch over. The player's choice is there, and I love that Square was able to do that. And also the emphasis of having the shortcuts shows that Tetsuya Nomura, who was the director of Kingdom Hearts, took that knowledge and put it into this game, and it was just great to see that there. What's also cool is that they have what is called staggering, which allows you to pretty much stagger the enemy and to be able to punish them for a short amount of time, putting on heavy damage. And I see that influence coming from Final Fantasy XIII when it was first introduced. And to see that in this game is great because it allows for overcoming punishing strikes on that enemy. Also with limit breaks, which has been something that they kept from the original game, to do special moves in terms of battles, and to be able to do that in this game just shows that they weren't going to stray away from what the originals had, but mix and blend with this hack and slash environment and obviously enjoy everything that's happening. Also, even though this sounds complex in terms of ATB and shortcuts and changing, it's really not. It's just about meshing the buttons and then getting to the certain point that you need. So once you conquer the actual how you want to flow in your game style, you'll be punishing every enemy that comes far along the way. But something that does need to take note in the level of difficulty when you're playing the game. Normal is kind of a challenge, and of course hard mode is kind of a challenge, as you aren't allowed to use items whatsoever during your hard mode play. But when you drop the game down to easy mode, the enemies were such a pushover, it wasn't a challenge. I tested this out once and was like, this wasn't fun at all, and I guess because it wasn't that overall experience I was looking for. But for new players, I can understand if you just want to grasp how to be able to play the game, it's there. And classic mode isn't the traditional turnstile based. It is, everything's done automatically as you're pretty much babysitting what you want to do, as in terms of ATB and other playstyles. I wish that they had more of a classic mode that for people that wanted to experience it the old way, but I can understand that it couldn't be done because it was a new take on the combat system, and they probably just didn't have enough time to do it. But just play on normal mode, you're going to be fine. Easy mode, if you just want to experience the story, which hopefully everyone wants to do, it's there. You can also dodge out the way and block just so that incoming damage isn't a counter effect. And dodging isn't more of an offering thing to get out the way, just kind of get to the next area. You're still going to take damage. But what I have to say that I thought was going to be a problem, but it's not a problem whatsoever to me, is that there's not a jump button. And I think that it's cool that they don't have a jump button, because you can leap into the air with Cloud or Tifa, however you want to do. I feel like they did that so that you won't stay on one certain character, because Cloud can't reach certain areas, so you use Barret. That just adds to the factor of you don't always stick to one character. And the fact that the jump button's there is significantly important because it allows you to play differently. I don't want to play as Sora from Kingdom Hearts. I want to play Cloud as Cloud. But if you do that, then you would never switch off with any of the characters. Final Fantasy VII continues with the tradition of having summons where some deity from up above comes up and helps you out for a certain amount of time in a battle. What is cool about it in Final Fantasy VII Remake is that everyone can use it and have it dish out abilities, and before they leave, they do one ultimate attack which can leave the enemy or boss that you're facing on its back heels. What I like about this is that they kept with the tradition of seeing some of your fan favorites in this game and just allowed you to use them right from the get-go. I've used them as a special treat because you can't use them at all times. So the fact that they come and help you out at certain times, it's like, oh wow, I can use a summon right now and they can help me. And it makes the fights easier, and the fact that everyone can help dish out spells for that summon to do, it allows for another player to shine for a second. Even though it's not every time, it just shows that, yeah, there's a higher power and we can do whatever we want. Just summon us. I thought that was kind of cool, and it's always been a cool staple in the Final Fantasy games, and I like that it's continued. Now, remember how I said that you had to play it your own way? Well, the menu screen is awesome because every weapon that you get levels up when you go to the next weapon. This is a big non-hassle that you will experience when you're grinding and leveling up in your game, because everything levels up. So even though you're not using that cool Buster Sword that Cloud is known for, it's still gaining levels and it helps upgrade. It also allows you to not just feel like you have to play one style. You can use whatever weapon you want, and you can also upgrade it to play it the way that you want, because each sword or each glove or each gun or each rod has its own way of playing in terms of doing more physical damage or more magic damage or being more of a defensive mindset. It's clear however you want to play, and you had to actually level those gears up. And the way that the screen is set, it reminds me of Final Fantasy X with its spear grid, that you had to have this much SP to be able to get this level. I looked at that and said, like, I'm glad that they were able to pull from past experienced games into seeing that here in Final Fantasy VII Remake later in 2020, because it shows that that system was cool. Let's put it here, and it works well, and it's not daunting at all. And the fact that everything levels up at once, it's cool, and it allows you to feel the pressure that however you want to play. Each weapon has its own special ability, and once you learn that ability, you can go and play with another weapon and still retain the same ability, which is cool because it allows you to play in that own playstyle without feeling like you need to have that weapon attached to it, because once you learn it, you can go to the next one and learn its proficiency, and it makes the style different as you want to see that cool Buster Sword still or Hard Edge. I really hope that future JRPG games can learn from this, so it doesn't feel like once you feel like you're done with a weapon, you don't need it anymore, because that's been a common thing in JRPGs, is that you get the best next thing and never come back to what used to the thing that you loved. This is an example of showing like you love that sword so much, you can go back to it after you learn some other unique abilities and then still benefit as well. The Materia System is still intact, which has been a big staple in the Final Fantasy VII game. It's like you can equip how you want each character to play in terms of magic, and the fact that you're grinding to get the extra Blizzaga or Faraga or Thundaga to get those high atmosphere moves of fire is still there in the game, and that they didn't go away from it. There's this push and pull about what we want in remakes and what we don't, and the fact that Square Enix was able to capture the previous system of Final Fantasy VII and put it into the remake and still hold ground to what the system should be like is key going forward and into the upcoming games. And I hope that they keep with the whole Spear Grid tradition, because it makes it easier for how to understand how to navigate through weapon customizations and magic learning, compared to some other JRPGs that don't even have that. Some side quests are meaty and some are not. They can be what feels like tedious, but they're actually fun, as like finding cats and understanding where they're at in location, and allows you to explore more of the area in Final Fantasy VII. But let's be honest, they feel like fillers sometimes, because it's just something that doesn't feel genuine to the overall story, while some side quests feel more lively and you appreciate yourself. There was an interview from Tetsuya Nomura where he said like there was so much content that they couldn't put in. Well, I would honestly like to see some of that content maybe in a DLC pack, as there should be more side quests. There's only 26 side quests in Final Fantasy VII Remake, but once you do it, it feels like there's no point in coming back, even though you experience the story and you might fall in love with it. But for something so big, there should be more side quests. And the fact that they don't feel like a route of The Witcher based, meaning that you can come back and complete it whenever, and it's more of a chapter selection after you beat the game, doesn't feel like you want to go back and do those side quests unless you're going for a trophy or you just want to experience it again. It just should be more grounded into the world, as big as Midgar is, and as much work as they put into it. You would rather it happen that way as compared to feel like filler or something you should just do just to get this weapon. It should feel more lively in that sense, because Cloud Strife is a merchant. He should be able to take on as much jobs as possible and feel like there's some story behind it in everything he does. The Witcher 3 was able to do that. I feel like Final Fantasy VII Remake going forward can do that. The Final Fantasy VII Remake music is fantastic, and it shows throughout the entire game, as certain key songs that you might have known from the past plays during battles or certain situations, and it just gets you pumped. But when that Final Fantasy VII battle theme music plays, it gets you so pumped that like sometimes you're just dancing in your seat while you're fighting. It's just so great, and I'm glad that they put it in there, remastered and orchestral, and you can actually appreciate everything that was used from the past and it was updated to today's standard for 2020 and was still used. The only downfall though is that the music is so loud that you can't actually hear what the characters are saying on screen, and it kind of makes you look at the subtitles rather than what's being said. It can be jarring at times, but if you turn down the music, you should be fine. Even though it is the most important part of the game, as what Final Fantasy VII knows for. It's there, it's just a matter of just like adjusting your settings a bit so that you can still appreciate the music and understand what's happening on the screen, because sometimes it can be really loud and you have your volume set like at 4, which shouldn't be super loud for most other games, but for music to be loud the way that it is, it's just there. But overall, the music's great, and I had no problem, as I was able to cherish one of my favorite soundtracks of all time in gaming history. And now a little bit about the voice acting in Final Fantasy VII Remake, because it was special and I felt like it needed to be talked about.
Well, look who it is. Talk about a coincidence.
What are you doing here?
Waiting.
Why?
Because I'm not sick of you yet.
The importance of the voice acting in Final Fantasy Remake is because we didn't have voiceovers for the original game. So going forward, when these voices are heard, that's what we're going to originate with going forward in sequels and episodics. And to see that the voice cast was precise, if you were known to read back in the day, for it being over the top with some of its characters, and some of them be lovely and just gentle in terms of how you might feel like the character might say this. And this is shown between Brianna White and John Bentley for the way that they capture the characters Aerith, Gainsborough, and Barrett Wallace. These two characters are dynamic in the sense of the way that one is gentle and kind of leads people on and just is overall cheerful, while the other one is over the top and has to have meaning behind everything he does and takes everything serious to heart. The voice actors were worried about capturing fans' expectations and seeing if they would actually like everything that they heard the way that it does. And by far, after playing it, I had to say that Brianna White has captured the heart and soul of Aerith in a way. She is cheery and go forth and is just someone that you can love as a character overall, while John Bentley delivers his over-the-top lines but also has meaning behind Barrett and shows what he would have went through, as the mindset of not reading it and actually seeing it heard out loud is great, and it makes you feel for the character even more, even in the latter part of the game. Everyone delivers on their keys. Going forward, Cloud Strife's voice will be the hoe, not interested. Cody Christian will always be there, as Britt Baron's Tifa performance is uncertain as the character was, but the more you go, she's becoming more lovable and takes on no shits whatsoever, and just feels like they did a great job, and fan care was there, and they treated each character with love and read what they felt was necessary, and it was just an overall experience that going forward, these voices will be heard for many years to come as Final Fantasy VII continues the rollout. Now, up next, the story of Final Fantasy VII. It's your traditional eco-terrorist kind of game where you're fighting against the bad guys that have been ruining our world, and it's your job to stop that. As you play as Cloud Strife, an ex-soldier who turned merchant to save and blow up a bomb. Now, that's just the beginning of the game, and it captures the overall province of a dynamic protagonist that doesn't really want anything to be involved with going on. But as the more he grows, you see Cloud turn into this different character as he cares about the world that he lives in, and it's not just about him. It has been said that the story of Final Fantasy VII can be related into today's time and how it's a environmental cyberpunk feel of give or take and people seeing the wrong and wanting to do right. It's just about how the manner they go about and which makes the story compelling and makes you feel interested in everything that's going on. And even playing the remake, it doesn't shy away from that whatsoever for what the original game was. It felt like they did a lot of care in making sure that the original themes were there and nothing was taken for granted, and it was there the entire time through. And I appreciate it as we talk about remakes being a one-to-one or if it's just a reimagining. And I have to say that for something that's called a remake, it's more of a reimagining, as there's more that they were able to build from the ground up to expand and just see some of these key themes as you fall in love with some of the side characters and seeing that they have backstories and you fall in love with them as well. It wasn't just one-liners as it was on the PlayStation version. There was some actual depth to it, and it made you feel for the characters overall. You understand where their views were coming from, and that's what makes Final Fantasy VII's story so great, that there were so many characters that they were finally able to flesh out and feel important and understand why they were doing the actions that they did in order to make them feel safer and to a better place. And of course, this is just the beginning stages of Final Fantasy VII Remake, because there's a silver-haired boy that is trying to mess with everything that you're doing. So, if you know what I'm talking about, you know where to see him. Final Fantasy VII Remake is a love letter to all its fans that have really been waiting patiently for this game to come out. Everyone talks about 7 here, and just seeing some of the jokes that are hand, and if you know the story of Final Fantasy VII, seeing it on the big screen again is amazing, and it just makes you fall in love. And if it's your first time playing through the game, you're going to be able to appreciate everything that past fans, including myself, loved about the games, even without the nostalgia, because nostalgia could be there. And I understand if you feel like you need to wait a bit to play the game, because it is being released episodically, and which is a word they shouldn't have used at all, as it feels like a complete game, and there was no struggle as through the 40-hour playthrough that I was able to beat the game. It's just a matter of waiting to play the next game, because it's just kind of like you want that next wing flavored sauce that's coming out in the next few months. It's like, oh, I have to wait that long to try this new sauce to rate it if it's good or bad. The fact that you have to do that is understandable, that you don't have to wait. But if you feel like picking up the game right now, it's worth the play. You're going to feel like it's a complete game. You're just going to want more. And like, outside of the fact that playing it on hard mode, I'm not for sure if you would really want to play it again. You experience the story, just the fan theories that might happen at the end of the game, and it's perplexing and understanding what you just witnessed and what it means going forward. Now, if you're not familiar with the way we rate games here at AWOI Gaming, I like to what I used to call as an influential scale, where we go from not influential, potential, influential, and very influential in the terms of how influential the game is over the game community, or like going forward, if other games can learn and be influenced by the game. And I have to say that Final Fantasy VII Remake is a very influential game for what it's able to do, for what it was able to learn from the Kingdom Hearts genre, mix it in with its turn style base, and make it into a hack and slash and overall enjoyable. The ability to switch to some of your favorite characters and be able to play as them. The fact that they all had depth. The fact that there's an overall story that's still yet to come. We just want to know when the next one happens. If you want to wait, I understand. But if you want to play it now, you're not going to be in any disarray of missing out on anything. You're going to enjoy the story and hopefully just feel like what you make of Final Fantasy VII going forward. Why is it so beloved? Why do people love it? And just appreciate for what it is. And I feel like Final Fantasy VII Remake does a really good job of doing that. And I personally plan on playing it on hard mode just to see the challenge, because you can't use items and all about that materia. So we'll see how I play throughout it, right? If you would like, hit the comment section, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you like the video. And guys, continue to stay safe during this isolation. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And this is Perry at AWOI Gaming, just saying, enjoy your games, have fun, be positive, and stay safe. Bye guys.